Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I want to give you a full review and an insight into the content of Alfred's basic adult piano course. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so, and make sure to check the notifications bell to never miss a new video. Also, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to give us a like. I made a video a few weeks ago about the Piano Adventures adult piano course, similarly to this one, and in today's video I want to dissect this method because I think both of them are in the top 3 piano methods for adult beginners and also for teenagers and late beginners. So this video is going to be broken up again in 3 sections. In the first section, I'm going to talk about the format and the series, so what kinds of books are available and in what levels. In the second section, I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of the book, what I like about it and what I don't like so much about it. And in the last section, I'm going to go through every single chapter, just show you roughly what you're going to learn in that chapter and some examples of the songs. So let's start with the series. Alfred basically has an empire of piano methods. They've got the basic one, which is for children, and then they've also got the new one, the Premier Piano course, which is a revised version of the old piano course, and then they have one for late beginners, and they of course have one for adults. The adult piano course is divided into 3 levels. You've got level 1, level 2, and level 3, and according to the notes to the series, after level 3 you're ready to play masterwork, so you don't need any more method books. You are supposed to learn all the basic concepts and methods from the first 3 books. Now, when you look up this title on Amazon or anywhere, you're going to see 3 different books coming up under the same title. The standard one is this one, which is the first format, which is the standard basic adult piano course, and it looks like this. And what you need to know about this book is that it is not made with the idea of learning by yourself, so it kind of assumes that you have a teacher, and this book is just a lesson book. For each level you can also get a technique book, which I think is called finger acrobatics or aerobics, and you also have a sight reading book, a theory book, and you have lots of different supplementary books that I'm going to talk about in a second. Now, what you also notice about this book is that this one is not spiral bound, so it's perfect bound, which means that it doesn't always stay open, which is not exactly great for playing the piano. But anyway, so that's the standard format. And then later on they published this, which is called the all-in-one adult piano course. And the main difference between these 2 books is that this book also contains some theory and technique pages for each chapter. But otherwise, the contents inside are completely identical. It's the same songs, the same pace, the same descriptions, but you get a little bit more theory, you get some worksheets, and you get some technique. Now this one is, as you can see, comb bound, so it stays nice and flat on the piano, and also if you need to work on the worksheets, you can put it down properly onto the table. They've got a 3rd version now of the same method, which I don't have here, but I'm going to show a picture now, and that one is called the self-teaching adult piano course, and it's basically the exact same again as this one, but you've got 1 page of description for each chapter, and there are a lot more resources you can use, like a CD and DVD for each chapter to help you learning. Essentially, all 3 methods are exactly the same, but you've got different kind of resources to accompany the lessons. Now, my advice would be, if you have a teacher, even just an occasional teacher, then this one will be perfectly fine. You can get everything from that. If you have a teacher, but you also prefer to have worksheet and technique in one book, and you don't want to have too many photocopies and notes on your lessons, then go for the all-in-one course, because this one, as I said, has worksheets and technique pages, and these are things that your teacher would tell you anyway on a lesson, but you might need to make notes into a notebook, and this way, if you have this version of the book, you won't need to make any notes. Now, if you're learning by yourself and you have no outside help, like a teacher, a friend, or anyone, then definitely go for the self-teaching one. It's still going to be very difficult to do it by yourself, but at least there's far more description of the concepts and how to do things in the self-taught version of the book, and there's a lot more resources to use. So let's see the 3 levels. Level 1 is supposed to be the complete beginner. When I look through level 1, I would say it's medium paced, and by the end of level 1, you're going to be at around grade 1 level. And when you get to the second book, it starts moving a little bit faster, and that's going to be around grade 2 or grade 1 level. And when you get to grade 3, although many people say it takes you to around grade 2, grade 3 level, I found many songs at the end of the level 3 book by Chopin, Beethoven, which are easily grade 4 or grade 5. So although the book and the concepts in the beginning of level 3 are around grade 2, the songs that you get at the end of the book as achievement pieces are way harder than grade 2. So it can take you up to quite a good level if you go through the 3 books after each other. Because many method books kind of fizzle out at around grade 1, grade 2, but I think the Alfred is going to take you a little bit further on, and after you finish the 3rd book, you're really ready to play the proper piano repertoire. Regarding the contents, the lesson book itself is just basically songs with very minimal description of concepts. So it's not going to be enough to understand music theory, but you can buy complimentary books for this edition, or for any edition as a matter of fact. You can buy the Arabics, which is going to have some finger exercises, and you can buy the theory book, which has a lot of worksheets, and there's also a sight reading book. Now, if you get this version, you're not going to get the full benefit of those books, because I looked through this book from beginning to end, and the amount of help you get on technique doesn't add up to a full book. So you've got some finger exercises here and there, mostly by Hanan, but it's not at the end of every chapter. You can add a lot more exercises, especially from a dozen a day, or if you buy any other technique books at a grade 1 or under grade 1 level. The supplementary books are abundant. There are so many songbooks. You can get songbooks for Christmas, songbooks for pop, songbooks for chart hits, hymns, country songs, and classics, and blues and jazz. So lots of different songbooks for every single level. And you can also use the songbooks for the basic adult piano adventure for children, because a Christmas song is always a Christmas song, so it doesn't matter who plays, I don't know, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, it's going to be around the same difficulty. So if some of your friends have any of these supplementary books that come with the basic piano course, you can easily use them with the adult one as well, because it's the same thing. The main difference between the 2 methods is obviously the wording, the pictures, and the pace between the lesson books, but the repertoire and the additional books are going to be very similar, and the technique as well. So that's all I wanted to say about the format and the levels and the kind of availability of the book. Now let me give you some pros and cons. I'm going to start with the pros. So the pro is that this is a very good method, and I'm not saying that just out of the blue. Like, anyone working through these books is going to get a good understanding of piano playing, and you're going to be able to play songs quite quickly. At the back side of each of these books, you'll see a description saying that this book will help you to play songs with chords very early on and very easily. And that is very true, because if you look at this book, chords come in on page 21, and you start playing full chords right at the beginning in the 2nd or 1st chapter, and from then on this book is basically building on melody and accompaniment. This one is perfect if you want to play a lot of pop music, or if you want to play songs that sound richer in harmony right from the beginning. So if you want to play songs quickly, and if you want to play chords and you love pop music, then this is the best thing you can choose. Another pro about this book is the binding, because everything that's a com binding is a win for me, because it stays open on the piano. Some of these books are very difficult to keep open. You have to kind of break them at the spine. It just depends how much it's been used. But if you start playing piano from a book, you'll see how annoying it is when you try to play and the book keeps closing on you. Another good thing about the book is that there are accompaniment tracks for each of these songs. So if you don't have a teacher, and you want to play along some tracks to make the songs sound more richer, then there are available accompaniment tracks and they are quite fun to play with. A big pro for me in this book is that it doesn't start with pre-notation. Many American method books start with playing by numbers or by looking at finger numbers, and I absolutely hate that, especially for adults. I think it's a waste of time. But this book, right on the first page, starts with playing actual notation, and you learn how to read notes very quickly. It teaches rhythm very quickly as well. By the end of the book, what happens, which I don't see with many other method books, is it turns into a repertoire book. Until page 95, you get concepts, and then for each concept, you get a song to reinforce the concept. But after that, you've got like 20 pages of just songs. So nothing else, just songs. And here you have a very nice selection of pop, jazz, classical. You've got Over the Rainbow, At Last, Singing in the Rain, and so on. So lots of songs in the end, and you don't need to do all of them, but at least you have a selection and you don't have to buy a specific songbook in order to enjoy some of the well-known classics. Because let's face it, every single piano method in the first book is going to be a little bit boring, because when you can only play 5 notes in each hand, there's no way you're going to play something very exciting and amazing sounding in the very first few chapters. Now, some of the negatives of this book is that it places very little emphasis on technique. And although you see some technical things and you see some staccato, you see some legato, there are no technical exercises in the book. And I feel like most of the book is just focusing on how to play melody, how to play chords, and it's trying to make you understand how to come up with chords and how chords are built. But you don't get any kind of classical exercises in the first book. So it's mostly focusing on melody and accompaniment and less so on technique and independence of the hands. The left hand by the end of the first book is going to be severely underdeveloped compared to the right hand. So if you are planning to play only classical music or classical and pop music, then this might not be the best. Or if you still choose to go with Alfred, you might need to supplement with some other exercises that really help to build your left hand independence as well, because in this book the left hand is mostly playing chords and accompaniment. Now, as I said, some of the songs are just not going to sound amazing, especially in the first few chapters, but that's just a given. And another con that I would bring up is that even in this book, which is supposed to be like an all-in-one, I feel like the technical part is very, very limited. There are no oral tests in it, and there are no sight reading examples in the book. So the technique is just 3 hand-on exercises, which is barely enough for anything, and it can be a little bit boring. I think there should be more varied technical exercises, and the descriptions could be a little bit more in-depth in the book in general. These were the pros and cons, so not too many. I still like the method, but as I said, it's more suitable for one scenario than another one. Now let's have a look at the contents of the book. I'm gonna go with this one here. So very quickly, if we look at the first page, you will see some nice exercises on how to relax the hand. Again, this is something that's missing from the other edition because it's supposed to be technique. And then in the beginning, you get some basic concepts, how to sit at the piano, how to hold your hands and finger numbers, how to play the keys. And then you start naming the notes on the keyboard. So very quickly you get to do things. It's not spending too much time on nonsense. Then the very first page with music on is teaching you 5 notes. So this might be a little bit challenging to play at first because it's already 5 notes and you have to memorize all of them, but it's very easy stepwise motion. And in the beginning, as you can see, you've got some letter names in the note heads, which really helps to memorize where those notes are. And this disappears very quickly from the book. Then you've got some rhythms. And here is the first theory page, which is missing from the standard edition. So you have to draw some treble clefs and you have to name notes. So that's how a theory worksheet looks like in the book. Now, after that, you start playing hands together. So the ground staff is introduced and time signatures. And you've got quite a few songs to practice that. Now here you're just basically messing around with the notes that you learned and the rhythms, the crotchet, the minim and the semibreve. And by the end of the chapter, you start learning about intervals. And this is one of the big pros that I forgot to say earlier on, that this book is basically trying to teach you to read music by intervals. And that means that Instead of trying to memorize every single note on the staff very quickly, we are going to look at the shapes and patterns, and that's how we read music much, much faster. And if you learn that from the very beginning, it's going to be so much easier to read music later on. So for example, if a note is in the space and the next note is on the line, I don't need to know what the note on the line is because I know it's just one step up on the keyboard. So here it's teaching you the intervals, seconds and thirds, melodic and harmonic intervals, and how to recognize them and how to play them. Then it's teaching you the fourth, the fifth, the sixth and the seventh. And for each of these intervals, you get one song to practice the interval with. And you not only practice the interval as a harmonic interval, as a chord, but also as melodic intervals in the form of a melody. And then on page 32, we get the first full chords, the C major chord, a triad. And this is where the melody and accompaniment starts to come in, and you get songs where the right hand is playing the melody and the left hand is playing chords. You've got songs like Merrily We Go Along, Largo, Brother John. Here's a happy song, so not too many amazing songs, let's face it. And then some more notes are introduced for the left hand, and you start getting the first dominant chord, the G7. The songs are getting longer and longer. You get more and more chords and dotted minims. And then, as you can see, here come the songs with the melody and chords. Now, the good thing is that sometimes they are swapped. So your left hand actually tries to play some melodies as well for a change. So the right hand is playing the chords and the left hand is playing a legato melody. And here articulation already comes in. And this is still chapter or page 43, where you have slurs and ties and staccato and legato comes in. When the saints go marching in, more notes for the left hand and the right hand. Then you start learning more chords in the C major scale. You learn the C chord, the G chord, the G7 chord, the F major chord. And whenever you learn a chord, it teaches you first in the left hand, then in the right hand, so you can play it in both hands easily. Then Love Somebody, A Friend Like You, the band leader, writing notes in the G position, intervals. And then on page 54, you start learning about accidentals, the sharp, the flat and the natural side. Here you've got something very interesting that I've never seen in any other piano method. So here is a graph of the hand, and here is a very interesting method on the other page, which is trying to build finger independence. Now these exercises are quite difficult to do because you have to hold down many fingers at once and move the weaker fingers, which are less independent. And this is a crucial and very important exercise, and I'm really happy to see it in a method book such early on. But if you don't have a teacher, these exercises can be very tricky to do by yourself. And moving on, we get the dominant chord in G. So every new song basically introduces a new chord, and by the end of the book, you'll be able to play songs in 3 keys, C, G, F, and D, and A minor, and you can play the basic chords in all of these keys and recognize them. Then on page 61, the pedal is introduced, the damper pedal, and then still more chords. As you can see, the G chord, D7, the dominant in G major, and you have to label some chords. You always get these little boxes. Writing more notes for the left hand. So here you finally know most of the notes of the left hand within 1 or 2 ledger lines, and some more worksheets for naming the notes. So these chapters, to be honest, are not really adding too much apart from an extra note and an extra chord, but technique-wise and concept-wise, things come a little bit late. So if you look at when the ritenuto comes in, when staccatos come in, when the capo comes in, or repeat signs and so on, these very basic concepts and dynamics, these are actually quite late on in the book compared to other methods, because this book is focusing so much on learning the notes quickly and learning the chords to be able to get that sound, even if the expression part of it is a little bit delayed. Then you've got a waltz, good morning, happy birthday, and on page 75 you start getting quavers. And on page 80 we get the dotted notes, the dotted minim and the dotted crotchet or quarter note. So this is going to allow you to play a lot more songs now because the rhythms are going to be more varied. To be honest, although this book is focusing on pop music, you're not going to find any pop songs until the very end of the book, because I assume it's copyright reasons. But if you buy the supplementary pop book for the lesson book, then you can always add a pop tune to every chapter that you do in the lesson book. But inside the lesson book, it's mostly spirituals, some classic tunes and traditionals and some originals by the author of the book. Kumbaya, and then here you've got a Hanon finger exercise, which is a very good exercise, but again, that's all you'll find in the book, 3 Hanon exercises. Blow the Man Down, London Bridge, and you've got whole steps and half steps, writing the major scale. So page 100 is where you're going to play your first scale. Now, I think that's a little bit late for a C major scale, but no need to rush with the scales as long as you learn them in the first book. And then Joy to the World, practicing thumb crossings, blues formula, which is very, very beneficial if you play pop. So you learn about the blues formula, the blues chords, and the pattern, the 12 chords. Then you've got some blues songs and progressions, and can, and on page 112 you learn the G major scale. Why Am I Blue, Good People, and then you've got on page 118 the F major scale, and then again a few songs for F major, Auld Lang Syne, and then on page 126 you finally get your first minor scale, the A minor harmonic. The key of D minor comes, Scarborough Fair, and this is basically where the songs start to come in. He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, The Entertainer, Amazing Grace, Over the Rainbow, At Last, Singing in the Rain, Laura, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. It's so nice to have some of these in the book because you don't have to buy 7 supplementary books if you just want to sample a Christmas song, a pop song, a jazz standard. So this is how the repertoire section looks at the end of the book. They're actually quite complex songs and they sound very pretty. So once you get to the end of the book, the songs are going to sound very nice. It's not going to be so kind of, you know, forgettable like the ones in the beginning. And by the end, after that, you get a certificate of award. So that's the contents of the first level. Now, I don't have here the second and the third book, but I did look through them. And what I have to say about the second and the third book is that the third book gets very, very difficult and fast-paced compared to the first 2. The second thing that I noticed is that while the first book is focusing mainly on chords and accompaniment and traditional spiritual pop jazz tunes, the second book little by little transitions into classical playing, a lot more melodies in the left hand, a lot more finger dexterity for the left hand, and the third book is almost completely classical. You get Chopin, preludes in it, you get Furelise, you get Moonlight Sonata, you get little sonatinas, and a lot of other big classics that you would not even think that this method is going to have inside it. So the first book is a really good start off if you want to do pop or jazz or anything in the popular genres. But if you go to the second and third book, you'll see that little by little you completely transitioned into the classical field or classical end of the piano spectrum. And if that's not your thing, then I would probably switch from book 1 maybe to Piano Adventures or something else that's a little bit more pop orientated, because it is really going to be very classical in the second and third books. Maybe by the second half of the second book, and the entire third book is almost completely classical. So this was my very long review of Alfred's adult piano course. I hope this was helpful. I know it was a lot of information, not very well organized, and I think it's sometimes just easier to answer questions. I'm going to do a video very soon comparing this to Piano Adventures, a side-by-side comparison, because I think there's going to be even more beneficial for those of you who are hesitating between the 2 books, as they are the 2 most popular ones. And although in this video I already highlighted some of the differences in a side-by-side comparison, I think it's going to be more obvious which one is better for what. So thank you very much for watching, and as always, subscribe for more.